Hello, Mark. How are you doing today? Good, good.
I'm adjusting my settings so I don't look so sunburned, even though I'm not.
Well, I like your background. It's very ornate. Hi,
Yeah.
Travis. Welcome, everyone. We'll get started in a bit. Give folks time to come on. Grab some lunch, maybe. Mm-hmm. Hope everyone's enjoying their summer. It seems to be going too fast.
Of course it is.
Mm-hmm. And lots of exciting stuff happening in the online world this week. Lots of announcements. I know there were some people who were even so eager to join, they joined at like noon, thinking that's when it started. So I'll look forward to seeing them. Hopefully they come back. Hi, folks. We'll get started about as usual about 12:35 Eastern time, so that give people some time to join and get settled. But for those of you who were here last month, I'm feeling much better. I didn't even bother watching the video. I couldn't even do it. I just put it out there.
Do you mind if I make a plug for my capstone group, Erin?
Not at all. Go ahead, Caitlin.
Hi, so I'm Caitlin Lim. I'm part of MEDALS, which is the Learning Engineering Master's Degree program at Carnegie Mellon. And we're doing a capstone project where we're trying to create a course authoring tool. And we're doing this for the Schaffhausen Institute of Technology in Switzerland, which is connected to Acronis, which you may or may not know about. It's a cybersecurity firm. Anyway, we're looking for participants for our user testing. And what that entails is basically we would show you some screens and we would get your feedback. It would take anywhere between 30 minutes and an hour, and you would get a $25 gift card to your choice of either Starbucks or Amazon. So if you want a $25 gift card, please drop your email in the chat and I'll contact you.
Great. Thanks, Caitlin. Yeah, we've been working with that group a little bit and giving some feedback on their designs, and they're working really hard on some cool things. So yeah, I would encourage all of you to be part of their user testing group. And it sounds like it's a lucrative deal. So, so do it. I'm going to wait one more minute just to give some folks time to come on, and then we'll get started. Okay, so welcome everyone to this month's Torus community meeting. We have these monthly, so to collect requirements and talk with the community of users, all of you, to get your ideas and brainstorm some of the things that we're working on to build our new next generation platform that we hope is built in a way that builds on the lessons learned over the past decade of use of OLI, what we call legacy now. This month's meeting is very timely because I am starting to align better with the Torus roadmap, such that we'll be talking about things that are being planned for in the upcoming sprints to accomplish. So very nice for the tech team to get some good detailed requirements and hear from the community. Also great that whatever we collect in this meeting goes right into use in terms of features and functionality ideas. So this month's meeting is about advanced section creation, which really entails the ability to to be able to mash things together or to create your sections so that you're delivering them to students. So we're talking about delivery side stuff this month, but we're considering some things that we haven't been able to do in the past, which is to be able to mix curriculum from multiple projects, and we've been able to do that in the past in terms of adding additional content. For those of you who do create your own course sections, you'll know what that means. But I think we're looking into expanding the capabilities of that a little bit. So this also entails the handling of updates and versions and what happens because we're allowing these mixes, and we want to be able to have a better way of populating course sections with fixes or things that have happened on the original course. Like I said, I'm starting to align these meetings with the roadmap. So as you can see on the roadmap, we're just in this advanced section creation sprint planning right now. The next meeting, which will be next month, I'm going to make about activity banks because that's something that I want us to think through carefully how we do that. And by the way, let me share some links in the chat. If you give me a minute here. I want to share the link. Let me exit full screen. I'm going to share the GitHub link. So that's to the roadmap, in case you're interested in that and following along with that in the future. And then there was a requirements document that I sent out with the reminder for this meeting. And so if you didn't get a chance to see that, I'll share the link for that as well in the chat. And these are just some of the images from that document. And so some discussion points. I'm just going to kind of talk through these and then open it up for all of your ideas. So essentially, we're thinking about what are the ideal general workflows for creation of course sections. And how often do you remix content or mix up content from other course sections or courses rather? And another question that I'm interested in knowing is how often do you copy sections? So there's the ability to, once you set up your course section the way you want for delivery to a specific cohort of students, we've heard that the copy feature of that section is used pretty extensively. What that means, by the way, if you didn't know it already, is when you copy your course sections, that kind of, I don't want to say breaks, but it does. It breaks that path back to the original course content version so that if we do any updates to that content, they don't get into that copied section. And so we want to kind of understand maybe some of the reasoning behind that, those decisions, and maybe remedy those in the new system. Another piece of this is assessment settings. So what are the typical assessment settings that you need? What are typical ways that you want to be able to rearrange content? And what kind of settings do you use in those course section creation? And then what would you like to be possible with regard to versioning and notifications of changed content? So as you remember, and I can show you quickly. Wait, that's not what I wanted to do. I have things in the way, so I wasn't looking at what I was doing here. This is going to, there we go. What did I want to show you? Oh, I wanted to show you just some content in Torus really quickly. And as you can see, we do have a lot of content in Torus right now, and there are folks who are using it to deliver courses. But just a little overview for, those of you who haven't seen it in a long time. This is how the curriculum is laid out. This is, pages and units, any given page of content. It looks like this and has all the things that you'd want as part of a course, the ability to create activities with feedback and hints. And then I wanted to remind you, I think this is where I was going with this, is the publishing process. As you may or may not know, we're building Torus to integrate very tightly with whatever LMSs folks use. And we'll have this kind of what I'm referring to as push button publish. Now when you build a course and you want to publish a course, to be able to create course sections, there's a lot of manual labor that goes on behind the scenes to move that content to the right servers and push it out. And so it's not very easy to update content on the fly, especially to existing course sections that are out there with students in them. That will change with Torus. You'll have the ability to, fix typos on the fly and publish those out. And there's lots of conversation about what those types of changes that you can instantly push out versus not, how that impacts the data. If you change a typo in a question, does that mean it's a new question? And then to what, how far can that go? Can you change the wording of that question, right? And then at what point is that not the same question that you're collecting data against? But anyway, all of that, I just kind of throwing out a lot out there, but we want to come back to these discussion points. So let me hear from all of you about how you create your course sections and deliver those to students. Anybody want to take a first pass at talking through that? Oops.
Hi, Erin. We do a lot of what you're describing. So we absolutely do the sort of laborious copying and pasting into new courses and reuse material. We do this extensively, especially because we have domain specific content now. So we have
Mhm.
4 domain specific content areas at the moment, with probably a 5th and 6th created in the future.
Mhm.
It is difficult to copy entire pages, and unless you just duplicate them, that's something we've talked about before.
Mhm.
So I do think that there's absolutely room for really a way to streamline this. So I'm glad that this is a course and this is a topic this week. I guess, are there any particular more questions like that you could ask me that maybe could help delve into this a little further?
Yeah, because you do this often, right? Because you're copying whole courses for the purpose of kind of using some of the content but changing some of it, right? And you probably are one of the most extensive users of those features, right? So the duplication. So you've hit on one thing in particular that's interesting, and that's that when you want to copy a page, there's this there's the way to copy a page and have it still be tied to the same page, right? Like, so if you change one, you're changing them both. And then there's like a trick to having to copy it in a way that it does it, that it unlinks it from the original, right? Are both of those use cases useful? Or is there one of those that you use more than the other? I mean, or do you ever use when they're linked?
So the linking is actually inherently something that we don't want.
Mhm.
And right now, the duplicate feature, which links them, it's less intuitive how to not do it that way. So the thing that I think most people would want to do generally is not have them linked. It's that you want to use the original content to modify it in a new version. So the way it's set up now, it's like that duplicate feature is the one that's easier to execute, but it's the one that's less commonly used for us. So we would prefer if it was easier to sort of copy without linking. The linking is not something that we generally want to do.
Right, right. And I would think that's the case across most folks who are, and so here's the thing where I get, and I'm probably going to cause confusion at the same time that I am a little confused, because we're talking about advanced section creation, which is, I believe, and I'm going to dig into the requirements document here in a minute, but there's a lot of different ways to think about this, right? Is this creation of is this the project copy and rework? Is it updates where we have, say, a intro to psych course, and right now I'm working on a project to really dive in and remove anywhere there was flash, to really hone in on those pages and kind of rework them. And I would want to push that out, right? Something like that. I would want to make sure updates all existing courses, course sections that are using it. Or I could make a new version, and then how do I get that out? Then I can't push that out to existing.
Yeah, so that I'm
right?
glad that you brought that up. So that's something that we're having to currently use a workaround for. So what we have is the current published version, and once that version is published, it's basically dead. That current published version is great. I mean, it's a time point for us, but any future edits have to be done in a new version that hasn't been pushed through the workflow. So once you get to the point of publication, there's no going back. So any edits that I do in that published version, I mean, they're useless. So we have to have a new version created in order to have that sort of forward edited version. So often it can get really confusing in Echo right now, because at one time I usually have 2 versions of every single course. I have the version that's currently been published, that's dead in the water for future edits, and then my new edited version. That's a lot to keep track of. So
And then you have that across multiple types of courses that have similar
versions.
content, but
Or
not.
versions. Yeah. So I have 2 versions of every course content. So I currently would have 8 different courses going on in Echo, and it would be a lot easier to only have 4 in Echo. So once you publish a course, it would be great if that course doesn't then become useless for future editing. If I can continue to edit the same course over and over again and not have to make a new quote unquote version like a 2.0, unless there's huge edits, like things that I really want to delineate that in my workflow. But now that's not possible in Echo.
So I want to hone in on something you just said though. What would you consider huge edits?
Let's say we added 2 new modules, like 2 distinct new modules.
So structural changes, structural.
Huge additions. Yes, huge structural changes, huge additions. But the vast majority of our edits are small things. We're changing quiz questions here, quiz questions there. We're, changing some text edits. But our changes often go beyond editing a body of text, and they have to do with I needed to change this quiz question feedback or answer. That can't be done in a simple republish. That has to be done with creating a new course version and then going through the workflow again. So anytime we have something beyond just a little textual change, if there's a change in the quizzes, we were told that we have to go through basically a new publish, and that can't be executed.
Right. So imagine though that you didn't do that and you did
Yes.
change the feedback on a quiz question.
Yes.
Doesn't that change the way you would look at the data for that question then? Or not? I'm guessing it's a question there.
No, it doesn't. So usually what happens is it's not that we've added a new quiz question. It's that we've edited the quiz question to make the wording a little bit clearer based upon the answers that the students were giving. So most of our edits, they really wouldn't require us having a new version of the course. The only time we would want to have a new version is if we really dramatically changing content, adding new modules. So now Echo is littered with like dead courses of the past. And they're all very similar until we add new modules. So I love the idea that we're going to be able to publish on the fly. I think that's fantastic. I also think that if we could be duplicating kind of versions ourselves and making new courses so that we don't have to bother you and say, hey, can you duplicate this course? That would make your lives easier, I'm sure, if we didn't have to email you and say, please duplicate this course. We're making a physics version from the biology version.
Right. Great. So Michael, you have your hand up. What would you like to say or ask?
Yeah, I guess a suggest would be the term, which is that it seems to me that there are different balances, obviously, in different organizations between the publisher of the course and the teacher, the classroom teacher using the course. And it seems like one way to handle it is to be able to set. This is a little bit complex, so I don't expect. I never underestimate Darren, but I don't expect this to be something I'll whip out tomorrow. But
Right.
you set parameters that say this is the beginning and the end of a term, and those would probably be set at an instructor on the instructor end. This is what I'm going to be teaching, so be very careful about how you mess with my course, right? And then from the publisher end, there are sort of there are corrections that you can push out during that period that are typos, the kinds that you don't think there's any reason why anyone would refuse, and they would flow out automatically to those published instances. There are some that you definitely would not push out midterm because that would really, it's substantial enough that it would cause risk to instructors. And then maybe there's a class that you ask them to accept. You know, do you want to accept this? Right. And this is just for their duration of the term. So whenever they're like done with the term, they're pulling from the updated master all those changes that you've put in. They're just delaying in their copy that they're using right now certain changes that they may not want to accept.
So yes, thank you, Michael. That's, I think, some of the ways we're thinking about this is that there would, we hadn't thought about, or at least we hadn't talked about automating updates. So typos and things. I didn't think about that in terms of maybe some folks just want those fixed and don't even need to be asked. I think we were thinking in terms of we would want to ask. But yeah, that's a good comment about that and the delineation between those three kind of categories. Where
I mean, if you find out, for example, if you find out, for example, that student reports that the answer to a question is incorrect, is in the system, and that student is right, you just want to fix that wherever you can, right? You don't want to just wait on that. So there are cases, and there's some of that, you know, you obviously would need to complement that with policy that says these are the only kinds of changes that we would push out without asking your permission.
Yeah, definitely. And I've definitely been in the situation where an instructor has asked, you know, has pointed out, okay, I have really good students, like a handful that are working ahead, and they found these issues. I'd like them fixed before my other students hit them. You know, that's a common occurrence, actually. And so, especially when it comes to wrong answers. Thanks. Mark, you have your hand up. Was there something you wanted to comment on?
Yeah, we've come across issues like this in French, especially, but also in Spanish, where one group of instructors or one instructor reports a problem, which we either confirm or say, well, that was intention, but they insist on it being corrected, even if our content creator says, no, that's how I intended it to be. So we get these complaints. And we also have people who want to reconfigure the course beyond what we've designed, which is not a total issue. But right now, we don't have any mechanism beyond our major unit level of rearranging the course. And you know, they want to change things in the order of in a lesson. They can't do that. If they want to move something from one lesson to another, they can't do that. They can only move lessons. And we also have instances where a group is requesting a specific structure to the course that is unique to them, which right now, you know, we can provide that to them. We then don't have control over fixing errors.
Right.
You know, they get the whole new branch and the whole new their own thing, and it's out of our control. It's out of, you know, when someone says, oh, this is an OLI course and this is wrong, and I have no access to even look at what they're doing, much less confirm, okay, it's a generic problem that all the courses will have, or is something they introduced.
So would you want to know who all is using your course in that way? Like, so
I've asked for that for almost a decade now. Now I've been working on French for 16 years. And periodically, once you know cycles go through, I ask, can I have at least a chance to look at in real time who's using it. Right now, I send a request to someone like Raphael
Right.
or Kim, and they, in a reasonably good time frame, send me a spreadsheet with, you know, the institutions, the version of the course, number of students usually. But when someone says, "Oh, I need to find out whether this particular student has got a specific problem in this version of the course," I usually don't know that they're actually using the course.
Yeah. Yeah, we were imagining a like a place where if you were the originator of the course, the developer, that you could see, you know, go to a screen and see who else is using that course section. But what happens, like, yeah, when they take some of the content, rework it completely, and that's going to probably happen even more often when we make it easier to move and copy, you know, pages, not just at the unit level or the module level, but at the page level, right? So this can get pretty messy with versioning. And then to what granularity do you want to know someone's using your content? Do you want to know if they just borrowed a page, or do you want to know something bigger than that?
I don't know. I have one user specifically who breaks down the course. She takes our 2 French courses. There are 14 lessons each. She uses the first 12 first semester, then the last 2 and the rest other 12 in the second semester. And when she starts saying, "I have a problem with lesson X," I have to ask her to get me access to that course so I can see which lesson is actually being referenced, because it doesn't match anything that I've got.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay.
So I can envision a problem as the support person. If someone has the ability to rearrange the course, and they say, "I've got a problem on page 57. This is what the problem is."
Right.
Yeah, I can't solve that.
Yeah, you need the page name at least, you know, to figure that out.
Which is all randomized. Yeah, right. Right now I can do it since I manually enter in pages. We're still using the old repository XML code for most of our courses. I can at least go and say, okay, this is in this lesson, this module, this subsection, and go through and start comparing these 5 to 10 pages that are in that section, saying, okay, this is how the actual problem.
Mm-hmm. And we probably have this. I don't know if we have even other courses, but we get asked a lot for the language courses to, you know, reorder, break apart, you know, probably I've encountered it more with the language courses than I think any other set of materials. Yeah, it's interesting. So there's also this idea of, once you create a course section, how many folks do you know, like, just keep copying that same course section? Because then that kind of breaks it from getting any updates, first of all. And I've heard that the reason people do that is because all of those scheduling and all of like the scheduling features, you don't, like, people are copying those sections so that it retains those timing and gating type of settings, so that you don't have to go back and recreate them all every time you do a new course section. Does anybody here have that experience? And yeah.
Yeah, we have gotten to the our instructors are expected to receive basically semester updates. So we say, report a problem, we'll fix it in the next update. And we try to do one definitely over the summer for the fall and the spring. If there are enough issues, we'll do it again in the fall for the spring deploy, and say, you got the course, you report your problems, we'll fix it for the next iteration. Just make a note of it, and tell your students to ignore that question, or we know it's wrong. You can correct it manually. As far as whether the student got it correct or incorrect. You can say, yep, they get the points.
So you just do those fixes in the same version then, so that those folks don't have to recreate their course sections from the new version?
No, they get a new version.
do
So
that,
for
okay.
example, yeah. So
You have to alert them to say, okay, now you don't copy your section. You have to create a new one now.
yeah, and we've tried to make that the expectation for the users that, you know, as of this date, you're using the most current version. We'll let you know when the next version is available. If please report any problems, we'll fix it for the next version.
Do you have a regular like templated communication you use for that? I'd just be curious to see that, because that might give us some clues into what things you have to tell them and remind them that we might be changing in some way.
It's an email I compose each semester. So that's usually when I get a list of who's been using it. Because again, as of now, I can't just generate a list of who's signed up for it and started using it this term. So I get the list and extract the email addresses and send it out to everyone. Usually get about a dozen responses that say, well, I only tried it out once. I don't like it. Don't send me anything else.
Yeah, right. Okay. So Dave, I see you have your hand up. I was going to pick on you anyway, because I know you're in the kind of a similar boat where you guys maintain a course that's used by lots of other folks. And so what resonates with you, or what did you want to, bring up?
I guess I was going to go for the bigger question of, I mean, it sounds like you're allowing people to write questions today and assign them tomorrow. Is that off the table? The reason I'm asking is
it's a possibility
that people use Canvas in that way for sure, right? You write the quiz tonight and they take it tomorrow. And because that is there in Canvas and these other systems, teachers are doing that and we're not getting the information. So, but I could see it being a management nightmare. But I do think if you make that possibility available, some people might try using it that way. And is that it's a good thing we would get all of the data. Now there's a whole bunch of data that's invisible to us occurring in courses, and the more that's not happening, the better. But I can also see this becoming an issue.
Interesting. So I didn't even think about that, that part of it. Because of the we don't have that functionality now, they found, a way to do it. Canvas offers it. And then we're missing out on not only the data, but also the questions that could be used in a bank, So do you get the sense that happens quite often? And if we had maybe some section, and what I mean by section is if you already have a course section and then there's some place where you can create a quiz on the fly and push it as part of the course so that it seems like part of the course and we can collect data, the same kind of data stream from it. That's kind of what you're asking for in a way, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's cool. I hadn't even thought of that.
It would lead to these problems that we all know the copyright on that question. I think a lot of these things that get put in Canvas are not legal, right? So I do think it opens up a whole extra bunch of stuff, but yeah.
Well, we can make some hoops to jump through, like where they have to provide some sort of metadata and permissions maybe. But then again, they could do it and then not even share it with us, even if it's created as part of, if they create it as part of one section, it's not really part of the canon course. Yeah, interesting concept though, for sure. I'm glad you brought it up. What are some other things that you encounter? What are some things people ask you for, or vice versa? What are things like what Mark does, or do you do more outreach to find out what people did? And would you want more of that information just available to you instead of having to hunt it down? So that's a lot, but can you answer any of that with regard to your courses?
A dream feature for me would be the functionality of GradeScope built into OLI. so that we get, because the grades are being assigned based on these high stakes exams. We now, like people who use Gradescope, even if you're giving a physical exam, you're scanning in and you're grading online and you make a rubric. And so you actually get a lot of detail. And it's all in Gradescope. So I don't know what the financial, for us, we have a license on that CMU. I think it's a financial burden for some people, but if we could bring Gradescope-like abilities into OLI, we would enable entirely new types of studies, I think.
Interesting. Yeah, that's helpful. I'm not familiar with Gradescope, but it's easy enough to go and see what they do and what kind of features they have and see what we can replicate, right? Or make a decision to try and integrate in some way.
Yeah, I think it seems like it's probably a big enough project that you're not going to just be able to run it on the side.
Mm-hmm.
They're a fairly big company, I suspect.
Right. So thanks for that. Anything else that you can share with us in terms of like what are things you get asked for from the folks that use your course, from the instructors that create course sections from it? And do you have problems, do you have any issues with the way we do versioning now that you'd like to see changed? That's more the question I think I'm after. A wish list kind of thing.
This be more question. I don't know if you heard my comment in the chat. Is it true that if you update a question now, your only choices are giving it an entirely new ID or just pretending you didn't touch it? So I think that could contaminate data. Like if you fix an error in a question,
that's what I think.
And then you don't rename it. And if you do rename it, then you'll know. I mean, there should be a versioning number thing going on that you could say, in addition to having this be a question ID, this is what it looked like on this day, and we can get back to it on that day.
Huh. Yeah. At the item level, I'm just looking at your chat now. That is interesting. That is one way to handle it.
If you're using Git, there would be a way to use the branching structure to achieve this. So you wouldn't have to write anything yourself, but because you could just do a branch for every edit on every.
Yeah, and that would help you identify it, the change in the data, which is what I'm also most concerned about. If you change a question, it's not the same question. Even if you change the feedback, that's a different. Students are going to behave differently or have a different. It's going to change the data on that question for sure, and you kind of want to be able to see that happen too. I mean, that's kind of part of the point of looking at the data, right?
Yeah. It may have some overlap with the parameterization issue, that if there's a random number you use to make the problem. I know Ken has talked about this, that you think that they're all the same difficulty, but you'll know it and they're often not. And so that the version number and the parameter number that was used are almost in this, they have some similarity.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I haven't worked enough with the parameterized questions to know how that's handled. So there is a parameter kind of like number associated with it and the data.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that it gets saved in the log file in some way.
I would assume that too, but I don't know.
We haven't been using. I certainly haven't done any analysis when I was analyzing something that had a parameterized question. But if it doesn't save the parameter, we're going to be in. It's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, I need to look at that, Dave. Thanks. I hadn't thought of that when we pulled out that data recently, but it's definitely something to look into.
Definitely. Yeah. And that data is so hard to look at, I'm sure, because of the randomization of the numbers too. There's no.
Yeah, it's going to be.
Oh, sorry, Sandy.
Yeah, so we run into this issue of pools too. Like, which question in the pool did they get? And then if the pool has parameters in it.
Oh my. Oh my, yeah. It compounds the issue. Yeah, pools or something, or what we're calling, what did I call it? Next, activity banks, because we're going to kind of reimagine the idea of a pool. So we'll get into
Sandy, do you get the impression that people would add questions to the end of module quizzes if they had a chance to?
Yeah, I have had instructors actually ask about that, like, can I put my own quizzes in? And I mean, my answer is, well, yeah, you can, but you have to, cut a branch in Echo, and then you're not connected to the main branch. And when I make updates, you're not going to get them. So it's kind of a complex process, but I have had one or two people ask me about putting their own questions into quizzes.
Mhm.
So I think that would be valuable for instructors.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I've had folks ask that too. It is a common question. And ideally you would want all that data together. You'd like to David's point about, they'll just do it in Canvas. But then we don't see that data. We would want to encourage them to be able to keep all that data together, but then it gets into other issues. Yeah, but still, they're asking for it and they want to do it. We should give them an opportunity, right?
And it may be safer to view those questions as not something we pull back to the overall course in general. And for the data analysis, I think we'd have to do a differential among students, because we wouldn't know what that question, we wouldn't have the same metadata on that question that we do on others.
Mhm.
But
Well, we'd want the
anyway,
ability to see the data a little differently for that set. Is that what you're kind of saying? Yeah, so that we
yeah,
know.
but yeah.
Mhm. Okay. So we were talked a little bit about with the tech team on notifications and what kind of notifications do you want to see? When do you want to see them? Do you want to know when everybody, when you change every typo, or like should we group those together in some way? And like at what point, because we have this ability to kind of just, I said, what happens if I want to change a typo, change a typo, publish? That's going to do something crazy to I would think, the versioning. And then how does that get notified? What if I was doing that? So do the people downstream who are using that course, get every little publish that I hit notification that, oh, a change has been made? And we could probably solve some of that with some policy and suggestions, group typos, or do things in terms of time instead of, or type. But if you were using a course section, what would you want to know? How would you group? To Michael's point earlier, were those the right buckets of things to be notified about when? Like, so should anything be automated? How about that question first? I'm just throwing so many questions out there. Nobody can answer them. Should any of it be automated?
I definitely think that when changes are made, that you can, maybe on some type of regular basis, maybe it's on a monthly basis. I think weekly might be a bit much. Maybe it's every other month, but it's the instructor gets a list of the changes, where they are in the course. And yeah, I think the category thing is a good idea. And they can, accept all of the changes, or they can go through the list and choose the ones that they want to accept.
Yeah, so you kind of feel like nothing should be just automated. Like,
I don't know.
I know
I
it's
think
tricky.
like typos for sure you shouldn't have to accept, like,
Yeah.
Yeah, but then how do you, so that means though that then every time you make a change, you would have to categorize the change too, right? For that to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that would be on your plate then to start to, like, as you fix things in the canon course, to make sure you categorize those so that people can know what kinds of things to accept. And then it gets into, okay, what if what I call a typo is different from what you call a typo? You know, changing a sentence. If you can change a character, you can change a sentence. And I was saying then people can start gaming the system a little bit, and you will have that. And I was referring to it in our past meetings with regard to activity, changing questions in activities. I want to change the wording in this question. I'm allowed to change typos. So now I can just change the question, and it's a different question. I don't know. I don't mean to make it so complicated, but these are the types of things, you know, we got to think about. Lauren, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I don't know if this perspective is helpful at all, but basically we re-edit our course every single semester. And that usually, well, that always involves a full read through. And no matter how many times we've done it, there's always things that we catch or changes that we make. And the way that we keep track of those in basically a Word document, which is not amazing, but it's, you know, it's a workaround. So one way that you could do this more systematically is to basically say, like, once the course has been published for the semester, it's published for the semester. I mean, that's what we do. We're like, it is published for the semester. It is in a place where it is excellent. Yes, there could be things here or there, but we're not fussed about it. And then when you do your review at the end of the semester, if Echo had a way to basically have, or no, Torus would have a way to basically have like a track changes of suggested edits. And then that way you're not under pressure to continually go in and check on your course and see whether people are making suggestions. You just do that all at once. Anybody can make a suggestion, just like in track changes, and there's initials by it or whatever, or, you know, what course instructor has made those suggestions. And you just go in and you edit that at one time. You see all of the suggestions. You see that they're in activities. You see that they're in quizzes. You see that they're in the text. You see that they're in a figure. You see that there's a comment. But then you're not dealing with multiple people sending you information at different times. It's one edited peer document that you can then review at one time point once each semester. That's just an idea. That's basically effectively how we do it. But, you know, I think that there, in some ways, there are less cooks in our kitchen than there might be in a lot of your kitchens. But maybe that's also a way to streamline it and just say, this is published for the semester. We revisit it again next semester, next version with changes. So my suggestion for this then is that basically Torus can allow you to flag suggestions this way, almost as a track changes document, but less buggy than track changes, which is in some ways useless when you have multiple editors.
Well, so I saw Mark giving the thumbs up, and that's kind of what he was describing earlier too, that he does. He takes a look at who's using the course, you know, semester to semester, alerts them of any changes that he's made for the next semester, and then it's static for that time period. That's how I try when I'm training people on these things. That's what I try and tell them to do, a suggested workflow. I really try to help people understand that changing things on the fly mid-semester, it's just not really a good idea. But I have to tell you, I get a lot of pushback on that. You know, I just was describing earlier, professors that ask me to make changes mid-semester because they don't want other students to see them, or it will affect the data if there's a coded question wrong, and they want to make sure they get some sort of data from it. So hurry up and change it so we can get that. What are you raising your hand about, Dave?
I just think I understand the need and like the advantages of that, but it leads certain projects are just never going to make progress if that's the way you're doing it. Like ours, we do have 13 instructors writing things. They don't get it. If you say, well, we're not going to use it till next semester, then those people are like, oh, that's now at the bottom of my priority list. And so if you're not, and then if you say in August, well, anything that's not in there is not good for this, you know, we're going to be using this in December, but they're like, I can't get this done in August. So, you know, so I do think in this community development model, that's not sustainable. And also the thing that most annoys students and instructors is an error in a quiz question.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you say, well, we won't fix it till the end of the semester, that's just going to be also. So if you any sort of community development model, I don't think the anything you do doesn't get used until the end of the semester is going to motivate people. And any mistake you find you can't fix in this semester is just going to make people very angry. Canvas and black. They'll go get Canvas and Blackboard.
Yeah, I guess there has to be a balance between, so we have to serve kind of both, all use cases, right? We want to have, if folks want to have a policy and a process where they only fix their course at certain times of the year, we need to allow that. And to Lauren's point, be able to collect a list of kind of possible changes to make. And that alone would make that whole process a lot easier too, because you're not having to do a re-review and find all the errors in the 2 weeks that you have before you have the 2 weeks to fix it, before you have to push it out again. But then we also have to accommodate folks who, because you're right, David, they think that it's unacceptable to have a typo in an assessment question, in the least. So and the expectation is it's an online course. Why can't you just change it? Even if you try to explain the data implications and why we don't do certain things, and that's not what they care about,
Well, if you have a track changes, right? And the changes are coming from, quote, central office that you found, and also from then you could just give, administrators / instructors the right to accept or decline the change. They can't erase it like I could on a Word document, right? I can erase a suggested change, but I could either decline, right? I could leave it alone, or I could accept it. If I accept it, that means I know I'm okay with that change happening in my course live. And if I save it, that means I either don't want that change, or I'm going to do that level of change between semesters, or I only do changes between semesters, just depending, right? Doesn't that give, that gives local autonomy, but allows everyone to contribute. And yeah, it's chaotic, and maybe you want somebody, quote, central office doing a little curating, right? Because if somebody makes a correction and you feel like that correction's wrong, obviously, somebody central should be sort of in charge of what is allowed to show for everybody. And I do understand the problems with data collection, because I know you're very, very involved in pulling the data in from everywhere the courses are implemented. But I think you have to let that go sometimes, right?
Right.
Just because otherwise you're getting in the way of the pedagogy for the data collection. And you can always recollect data on the revised question, or you can say clank, minor, even the smallest change means it's a new version, and you have a version tracker and a version editor, and then your researchers decide whether they can analyze that data together or not, right? Don't bother the instructor and administrators with that, right? We just want a really nice course, and we want to change it when we want to change it. And if it changes your data collection, makes it harder for you, we don't care.
Right.
We understand, but our students come first before your need to gather the data. Even though we know your data analysis helps you improve it, we're willing to slow down your data analysis a little bit, let you guys make the judgment call. If you're giving us all this flexibility to see everyone's suggestions that you've curated, right? It's sort of a win-win-win for everybody to maximize the flow, maximize the optionalness, and then keep the data collection to yourselves. Let your researchers make the decision if that edit matters or not.
Right.
Just automatically split it.
And maybe I'm thinking too much about the data collection piece and the analysis piece, but I would think I would need to know which course sections did make those changes or didn't, so that I know how that might impact the data, right? So that's interesting. I'm imagining this like subscription service where if you're going to subscribe, there's some responsibility on the part of even each subscriber to actively participate and give more information and context about how they're using these courses. But is that too much to ask just the regular instructor?
Seems like, you know, if you're of the type of like me who just does it once per semester, it's no problem. But I completely understand. I mean, I put courses into Canvas that if there is a quiz question error, that is like a major problem. So I completely understand that, and those sorts of errors can be fixed in Canvas. If the editing tool that you'd make in Torus, that would be, you know, instead of track changes. If it basically has time points attached to when suggestions are made and when suggestions are accepted, then you can kind of keep track. Okay, well, this suggestion was accepted in this course at this time. And then you can see if you need to look at the data in further details. But, you know, that sort of automated timestamping can absolutely be part of the system. The other thing that you can do to allow more user choice is when you're setting up like the track changes for your document for settings, you could even say immediate email notification if request is made for quiz. Immediate notification if request is made for activity. Or you can have it say no immediate notification. So that puts a lot more power into the hands of each individual person's needs. And I could absolutely understand that you would say, you know what, I don't care if you make a small contributional change to the text. I'll be reviewing that at some future point. But I want to see within the next 12 hours, I want an immediate notification if someone has recommended change to the feedback for this quiz. Then you can kind of allow yourself to have a check system where you're telling the system, I need feedback on these things. I will deal with them immediately. Everything else will be dealt with later.
Interesting. Yeah.
That sounds like a very elegant solution to both the
Right.
research end and the make it easy for me to implement end. Right. And if there's multiple sections and multiple instructors, probably that's delegated to the course leader. They're the one making those decisions in case, you know, you're structured that way. So it seems pretty elegant. Notifications, and then I love that timestamp, Lauren. Thanks for being so efficient and effective. Right. That means we don't have to worry about it as users, but you're informed completely about when that section changed the item. So it just goes into different data pools, and then you're
Nice. Yeah, thanks, Lauren and Gideon. Those are, yeah, it's kind of like making the system do the work for us, like you know, a good system should, you know, right? It can totally track those timestamps, notifications. Okay. What about, go ahead. Yo, please.
Yeah, just I think at least for me, I don't know if it's a general feeling, the excitement of OLI versus any other platform is that it is open to change, not from just me, but from the hundreds of instructional users and the thousands, tens of thousands of student users, right? So that's new, that's different. And that'll need very creative management and curation to keep that awesome power and the awesome power of your backend analytics while still keeping that kind of openness. Right? Was it called Torus because it's open in the middle, right? Is that a metaphor for the openness?
I think
I'm just guessing here.
There's a lot of metaphors mixed in there. Could be one of
But
them.
really, it's like what they say, Web 2.0, right? For 15 years, it was watch stuff, and then it was interact with stuff. And somebody's invented Web 3.0. I don't know what that is, but this is courseware 2.0 or courseware 3.0,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everyone at every level is contributing to its improvement at all times. And we're telling you how to kind of make it, we want a little power and autonomy because that's the way we are.
Right, right.
But you also want to analyze the data because that's the way you are, and we both have to be the way we have to be.
Yeah, I was kind of, using the quote, with great power comes great responsibility, right? Like you need to be able to, if you're going to have all of this power, that's kind of why I was going in that subscription kind of idea that if you are part of this community, then be active. And this is one way to be active in that community. But, we're always going to have users who just want good courseware too. And they just want to be able to teach with it. And they don't need all of that power or want it all. And so we have to accommodate all those. And I think, yeah, you guys have given us some great ideas around that. So I'm really interested in, and this is the direction I was going to go next, into when you create a course section, what are some of okay, let's get off versioning for a second. Let's think about what are some of the features and settings that you have power over there when you're delivering a course to students, and what would you like to see that you don't have? So I can throw out one suggestion that we get all the time, or a question we get all the time, which is gating and the ability to gate content in different ways. We do have some ability to do that, but I don't believe it's as granular as some people would like. And I just want to confirm or not that statement. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that that's an issue, and that would be a good feature.
And to what extent, like, do we want to be able to gate it? Where's the cutoff? Like, what are some things you'd like to be able to do?
The one instance that we had, which I don't know that this would really apply to a lot of courses the way that they're set up. But for this one particular course that we developed, it did make sense. But we wanted to gate it like on a page level, like the student couldn't go to the next page until either they completed all the activities or potentially got all the activities correct. Can't remember which way we were thinking, but we wanted, to make sure they did the stuff on one page before they went to the next page. Like I said, I don't know that would really be something that a lot of instructors would want for their courses.
I want that.
Oh, okay. maybe
high school people especially
Yeah.
want it.
Yeah.
Right. That's
Okay.
the course that we were developing for high school students, and the pages were shorter. And yeah, it just made sense there. In our, Gen Chem, I don't really think that it makes sense at the page level. Like it's good that instructors can set it up, at the module and unit level and not, have it available till they, want it available. But another thing that I imagine you're aware of and you hear a lot is, well, first of all, the grade book in general, and then also being able to transfer automatically grades from the OLI grade book into Canvas or Blackboard or wherever.
Do you ever want the ability to do that on the fly? So what I mean by that is, Torus is integrating better with Canvas such that the graded pages, I believe, the graded pages become columns in the LMS grade book. Would you want the ability to turn a formative assessment page into a graded assessment page on the fly? Like, do you think instructors would say, okay, I want to make this a graded practice now.
I think that potentially instructors might want that. As you know, a course designer, I don't think it's a good idea,
Yeah.
but I think very potentially instructors might want it. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, the grade book is in OLI right now. We're not even, we're just going to integrate right now with the LMS, and it does so pretty elegantly at the moment. So it's a matter of what else might be needed there.
The formative versus grading, there is one thing some teachers do is you have to take the quiz at the end of the module, but then a lot of students just jump to the quiz and skip the module. And so if you want to, and other instructors want them to do the module. So the sort of, did you complete every activity on every page? And then you get points for doing that. And I think there's value in that. So
Okay.
Yeah, better indication of not just collective student participation, but individual student participation.
Yeah.
I think it's in there in the learning dashboard somewhere, or the grade book. I don't know. I always have a hard time finding it, and I'm not sure how accurate it is, but yeah, like, cause yeah, some instructors want to give some points just for, okay, you completed the module.
Yeah, it would be really cool if we had a way of doing that more systematically than we do now. I know that one of the reasons that we don't have individual student like data in the learning dashboard, and Norm and I were actually having this conversation this week because I was being asked by an instructor like about wanting to see the formatives for any given student. And we were talking about how, we want that formative practice to be a safe space for students. And we know that as soon as we give instructors the ability to use that in various ways, it takes away that safe space for the students, right? And so we purposefully designed the dashboard so that you couldn't go in and see individual student data in real time for the formatives. Now, I was speaking with an instructor about this who's asking this question, and I didn't get the chance to give her the answer yet, but my recommendation then, if she wanted that, was to then to use summatives, because in this particular course she didn't have any summatives. So my recommendation was going to be, if that's what you want to be able to see, then you have to do it with the summatives and to design the summatives that way, and leave that formative practice as that safe space. But it is something people ask for, right? And at least to be able to give participation scores against that formative practice would be ideal, I think, and beneficial for everyone.
And Aaron, I think when you talk about like an agreement, a sign-on, I think that's the kind of stuff that you might want to focus on. You might want to say, by signing onto this, then, we want you to be aware, we do not mean the formative material to be used for assessment. So you'll have to accept that you can't reach student individual data. We want it to be their safe space. We suggest, if you want to do, we suggest you use question pooled summative assessments, evaluations, whatever you want to call them, for that kind of getting into the students' nitty gritty awareness or not awareness to deal with them individually, where their weaknesses are, if you're personalizing instruction, right? That's kind of long, but I think you could condense that idea, because that's sort of oh yeah, I never thought of that, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And there's a lot of that we try and get in. There's just a lot to tell instructors and even future authors about the philosophy behind OLI decisions and the way the system works. And we try to find ways to build that in as much as possible, right? Tooltips and guidance, and you'll see it
Mhm.
more in Torus even. You know, when we have where learning objectives are, we're pointing them to guidance about good learning objectives and why it's important to do it. So yes, thank you, Gideon. We're gonna try find ways, and it's stuff like that. I should be keeping a running list of those types of questions so that we hit those points right on in the software with those tooltips.
Right. And that's a very, you could say it quite directly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are right. And there's different flavors. They have different titles, right? The material in blah, blah, blah is formative for students learning. We want it to be a safe space. So you
Mhm.
can't track it individually,
Right.
period. Right. It just, oh, okay. And then everybody who signs on realizes that's, tracking that
I'd love it if
individually is.
everybody was so as agreeable as you did.
So I want to push back strongly on that, at least at the level where you don't support. I think that can be a policy that a course developer wants to make. I don't believe the safe space argument works in freshman chemistry. I think it's
Okay.
we
point.
can talk about the data. So to build into the technical system, and it has been built in the past, that you cannot get the data to the instructor on the formative assessments, that was a real barrier. And so having it as an option that a course designer can select is one thing, but forcing it as an OLI policy, I would be strongly against.
There you go. Flip
Yeah.
switches are better, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, in fact,
So Lauren, yeah, you've been trying to get in here a while now.
when I came to CMU originally to get trained in how to use Echo, and I did learn right off the bat that basically all of our end of module stuff had to be summative, otherwise we wouldn't be able to get the information. And so that led directly to our decision to use summative. So I'm glad that there was that level of transparency for us. That was really helpful because then we have formative stuff on the pages leading up to the quiz at the end.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that would be really helpful to us that I think we discussed in a previous conversation is there's often a lot of agreement, not complete agreement. It depends on the course, and if you need to be tracking how many mistakes are made at the assignment level, I completely understand. And in freshman chemistry, you have to see where the mistakes are made early on. But we really stress that for the formative pieces, when we implement them in courses, we do participation points. Like we absolutely want to be doing completion-based crediting. So
Mhm.
one of the discussions we had earlier is how easy is it to integrate that like completion-based crediting into those assignments, into those formative assignments for the grade book. That would be really, really helpful. Those completion-based points for those formative assignments, if those could be automatically generated, that would be fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, and I just want to say I kind of agree with Dave's point of the safe space for students. I don't know that I really see that very strongly. And I do think strongly that the formative, shouldn't be graded, but I definitely see instructors wanting to, and I think very legitimately, wanting to know, what their students did and give them a participation grade for it. And how an individual answered questions makes you better able to help that individual, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then, right, it's all about options, right? You
Mhm.
allow the instructor or, the admin in charge of all the instructors to make that decision about whether formative is individually readable or not. And then there's another decision about, how much participation credit or is formative worth participation credit? That's a yes, no. And then how do you integrate it? Maybe you keep it simple. A yes on formative means that that's 20% of their grade and the other 80%. But I have a slider, right? Maybe I want formative to be 80% and the summative quiz to be 20%, right? You
Mhm.
give all that power to us. From your end, it doesn't matter, right? You're just following the summative for your research. For us, it makes all the difference in the world.
Mhm.
And the reason I'm so compliant and happy to do anything is our summative assessment is always ours.
Mhm.
So courseware is always
Form-
formative. So that's sort of like my own compliance centric
Yeah.
attitude, or
Right.
like, yeah, whatever you want, you know, we're going to make our exam, but anything you can do to help improve. So David, I do agree with you that, yeah, you know, individual information is always useful. So I retract my former comments, but I ask for the power, right? The
Right.
power to flick buttons and decide, you know, either for me or for my collective instructors, how my institution is going to do it for now. And then when I want to change it or our policies change, click, click, click. I've modified it on the fly. You shouldn't care, right? Because you're still getting your data from the summative assessments, and that's all you ever wanted.
One
Plus our,
clarification. One clarification. In the current system, the researcher gets the data on the
Mhm.
formative. So it was really, it's just an issue of what's exposed to the instructor.
Instructor. Yeah.
got it.
That's right.
Got it.
That's exactly right. And it seems like there are some decisions we can make with Torus that do make it more instructor friendly, but still retain the researcher abilities as well. So I think that's one of the goals for Torus, at least in my mind, because that's the audience I work with every day are the instructors, and so I know that there's some real power to some of the things we could do in Torus to help them identify and help struggling students better. I think we've gone a long way, come a long way, and done more than many other systems. But I think there's some room for improvement there. And to that point, I think I asked this before, but Eli put it in the chat. What about, being able to convert formative to summative on the fly? Is that something that would be used? Like to be able to say, hey, I'm going to take this section of formatives now and make it graded. Does that ever?
Yeah. I think that some instructors might want that, but as a course designer and, kind of the OLI philosophy is to, have these ungraded formative activities, and it's set up to be formative. That's how the platform is designed. That's how, if you're developing a course, that's what you should be thinking when you develop a course. So as a course designer, I don't like that idea, but I do think some instructors might want to do that.
So I agree with you, Sandy. I think that when we design a course as an instructional designer, primarily I want to I'm careful in that design, and those formatives are there for a reason, and they're designed a specific way to be formative in nature. So I agree. I think Eli, I don't get asked for that a lot either. I haven't been asked for, can I grade the formatives? I think people understand that philosophy, that the formatives are formatives, but they do want the ability to give participation points. That's the main thing I get asked for on the formatives. Okay. So is there anything we haven't touched on yet that's regarding, course delivery and settings that are set up when you go to deliver a course? We talked a little bit about gating. That to me is a little bit like scheduling as well. So yeah, Harley, good point. We do a timestamp on this forward, and this is probably something an instructor would like as well. That's a good point. Yeah, knowing when students did that work is probably really important to an instructor.
And to use Lauren's idea earlier about the timestamps on the edits, timestamps and choices when you're, modifying these sliders for amount or whether the formative counts. You also need to let us decide whether this applies for any future student or any student who enrolls after this date, or whether we want it applied retroactively to everybody in the grade book. because I'd probably need that, I'd probably need to, right, if I'm semester based, I'd probably want to do it. If I'm not semester based, it kind of depends. The worst thing to do is have a course that you can, oh, I want to twiddle that. And then it's like, nope, can't twiddle it. You already have students enrolled. We can't change. You're locked up. Let me decide whether it's locked up or not.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah. Overrides. Let's see what else. Overrides and deadlines. Yeah, I agree. There is a lot of clicks going on there with all of that. And yeah, we do need a better interface for handling exceptions and things like that. It's probably one of those overrides are probably one of the most used features I've seen used. Yeah.
It's great that you have it, because without it, people really would be uncomfortable. But it's not that. But if you look at the way other systems do it, it's much easier.
Right. Yeah, I'm always I'll say impressed with how many clicks we've put in place for certain things. I'm like, wow, that wasn't necessary, and it's probably the nature of how features were developed, right? Like we didn't have it and we had to add it. And next thing you know, it's buried, 5 clicks in. So yeah, we'll have to pay attention to those features, make things a little more quick for an instructor to manage a class, right? And the things that they have to do.
I think another thing that would be useful, and this is something I've gotten feedback on, is instructor graded problems. There's a lot of clicks that the instructor has to go through to get to a student answer. They can only view one student answer at a time. Then they go to click to get to the next student answer. And it's just very, grading instructor graded problems is time consuming enough, let alone, adding all of that to it. So some way to have those easier.
You're talking about open-ended?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I have to say that is something that I think comes up weekly.
Yeah, and Don just said there in the chat to be able to see them all together. Yes. And you can see them all, and maybe there's a column that you could put the grade in. You read it, you give them a grade. You read the next one, you give them a grade.
Check boxes next to the different students, and you check off 1, 3, 7, and 9, and you say, no, you did this wrong in this question, and then those get grayed out and you comment on the next batch. Because the way we've done it, we have one stock feedback, which is 0 points and a little explanation. And then I give that to the student, and then I'll change the score to whatever partial credit and type additional comments. But I keep doing the same thing over and over again for these questions. So it would be nice to be able to see it, all of it, make sure you're grading consistently as well. That would be really nice. And that you haven't forgotten to give partial credit to one student because you were grumpy when you looked at that one, then you went on, you got your coffee, and you looked at the next one, and it was like, oh, I'll give them partial credit. So, that kind of thing, it would be much less likely to happen if you just saw them all at once and you could compare and group, and that would be, and also it would save so much typing. And typing, for me, that autocorrect absolutely hates. You can't type logic in to a browser and have it accepted. It's ridiculous. It's like, no, that's not supposed to be a word. There was supposed to be a comma there. I hate you, autocorrect, and words I cannot say. So that happens so often, and it's so frustrating. It doesn't even matter if you paste it in, it changes it on you anyway.
Oh, wow.
So I have a question that
I set up, but anyhow.
Sure. Question?
Go ahead, whoever was it that said something.
Just one real quick thing. I think while we're talking about the instructor graded, having a setting where the instructor can choose to have those in their course or not would be good, because some instructors just don't want to deal with it.
Yes.
That's a nice idea.
I was just going to actually say I've been supporting instructors who have like 400 students. in a section or more, and they have to constantly, they have to tell students, don't do those, and I'm not looking at them, and then still have students come and say, hey, I did that, are you gonna look at my answer, and they're like, no, I'm not. So I think that's an important toggle to be able to say, I'm not going to do any kind of instructor graded questions in this section. Yeah, interesting.
The comment I had, inspired by Dawn's comments about providing partial credit and kind of figuring it on the fly, looking at all the responses. Not the first time you do the course, but the second. Wouldn't it be great if Torus gave us the ability to slide in a rubric of our own design for our own added instructor graded questions, and then possibly for yours, right? Just the ability to slide in a rubric. And it could be 0, 10, right? It could be 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, right? Whatever we want, just let the rubric have the description of the score and we just check it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's easy for Torus to do or hard for Torus to do, but it's almost like making it into multiple choice. You're just describing the ways that I can respond to the question instead of how the student can click one option. I click one option to give feedback.
Yeah, thanks for that, because I agree that we should have the ability to build rubrics into the system as well. I think it would give us a lot more options in terms of design if we could do some more open-ended and rubrics. I think it's a good practice for open-ended. So yeah, thanks for that suggestion, getting that in. And thanks, David, for offering to show us some grade scope functionality. So I think I will follow up and schedule something with you and to see what things you like about that we might be able to bring into Torus. So we're at the top of the hour. Been a really lively discussion, and as always, great feedback. I love that we can throw out these ideas about what we're about to build, and we didn't even stay completely on point with advanced section creation, but even the tangential stuff that we collected is always super helpful. Just so you know that I do take these meetings. I have a student worker who I have, listen to them, take notes, and turn our requirements into user stories that feed into the issues in GitHub for the tech team when they're ready to tackle these features and functionalities. So we do have a process to take into account as much of this feedback and requirements that we gather. So thank you all for being so, for participating and coming. And the next meeting is in August. It's August 6th, and it's going to be about activity banks. I'm going to be on vacation that week. So if I do, I'm going to try and enlist someone else to be the host. So if you're interested, let me know. Or I might postpone it. So we'll just stay tuned and I'll let you know what we do. But thanks, everyone, and great seeing you, and have a great 4th of July.
Everybody.
Bye, everyone.